Fontaine Gamble, and I'm a drug addict.
Who's your friend?
I'm Bernice Stokes. I'm not a alcoholic or a drug addict or anything. Parole officer.
I had her once. She's a real ball buster.
Your son, he's a suspect.
In the murder?
I'll do what I can. But some of the people I gotta talk to, that's a violation of my parole.
Not if you inform your parole officer and get approval. I'm your parole officer.
Her son's gotten into some mess.
Last I heard, that boy went down to the border.
Detective Suarez, these people need to talk to you.
This looks like trouble.
I want him back. And if there's any way, I don't want him to go to jail.
2,000 up front, then cash.
We used to call him the Terminator.
He's doing some side business. He can get snatched by the snakeheads in TJ. They sent me his ear, man.
What's next?
We go to TJ.
To distinguish who we are, I'll introduce you both. John Salyes.
Hi.
Filmmaker, editor,
Writer.
storyteller, writer. That's right, and author, as well as screenwriter, also author. And Yolonda Ross, actress.
Writer.
And writer. Director.
Hi.
What work have you done, since it might be a little less known to my audience, but I know you've been going quite a surge of acting gigs.
I was on Treme recently, second season, and I just shot a pilot for Showtime that's not, it's not picked up yet. But I was in Antwone Fisher, Stranger Inside, Yelling to the Sky, and.
But you said you also directed, though.
Oh,
I was
yeah,
more
I
interested
did
in that because I know
Breaking Night.
Oh, okay.
And it's doing the festival circuit right now. And we actually just played in Santa Fe in front of Gopher Sisters, which was amazing.
Wow.
Yeah, no, man, right?
Was that a coincidence, or is that was that designed?
They both had the same actress in it, Yolonda Ross.
Don't know her.
No, it was really cool. It was really cool. We had a great turnout, and the video, or I did a video cut of the short, and it's now on VH1 Classics because I had gotten the music or licensed the music, Blinded by the Light, and that runs throughout the film, and so it's now the video for that song.
Wow,
I know.
Repurposed for right?
Exactly.
That's interesting. Well,
I think so.
Yeah. And then, John, how did you discover? You have ostensibly a casting director.
So, I actually we work with Cindy Tolan here in New York. If people who do have a television, unlike Yolanda, if they've ever seen Flight of the Conchords, among Cindy's other things that she casts that. And but I actually knew Yolanda because she came in to read for Honey Dripper. She actually came in to read for the part that Lisa Gay Hamilton got in Honey Dripper. And so this is one of the rare cases where I knew my three lead actors as I was writing, or who at least I was going to ask. Yeah. And then when I finished it and liked it, I sent it off to Yolanda and Lisa Gay and Eddie Olmos. And they all said yes, which is always great.
That is fortunate because
it doesn't always happen. And it's one of the reasons I try not to know who I'm going to try to cast until I finish the screenplay, so you don't, write yourself into a corner. And
right. I guess that there could be two sort of results with that approach. One is that you have a happy chain of events where you do get the actors that you envision, or because they're not available, you get other actors, but they actually end up being far more, or bringing completely different ideas to the table that you couldn't have ever anticipated.
Yeah. As a director, when you're casting, the minute somebody says no, they become, well, what was I thinking of? That person isn't made for this.
Yeah,
whoever I do cast is the exact person for it. And very often that has happened to us, is that you have to reconceive the character. Not usually rewrite, but usually reconceive. Okay, well, I can see it in that body and that voice and that age and that, what that, because each actor, they are actors and they can play different, sizes and shapes and periods and all that kind of stuff. But they do bring a basic thing to it. And sometimes if they're very known actors, it's a history with the audience. So, Don Knotts is different than Clint Eastwood, the minute they walk on screen. But if they're not, kind of household name actors, they also just kind of bring a package, with them of what their strengths are and a persona or whatever that they kind of changes the character quite a bit without, changing a single word.
So, so what we're saying is, or if I'm following you, is that every time someone says no, it's actually an opportunity.
Yeah, and you better think of it that way and not be judging somebody's performance by, well, what would Spencer Tracy have done?
I'm reeling. I just got Don Knotts, Clint Eastwood, and Spencer Tracy.
None of whom were in Gopher Sisters. I'm sorry to say, but we got the people that we wanted.
Yolanda, tell me, because one thing that you walk out of this film and it's a bit of a scavenger hunt of a film in a way, and it's got all these other tropes to it. But one thing that you walk out feeling really satisfied about is the performances. It's just you feel like you didn't do the big heavy acting. Oh my goodness, they were acting, and it was all this melodrama. It was really just subtle, lovely performances. And I'm wondering what it's like on the set of a John Salyes film from your perspective. I can ask John too, but and like how does he create that environment where you guys, because you couldn't tell at all that you resented Lisa Gay for taking your early role.
Well,
that was meant for you
in
the Honey Drippers
because it wasn't there.
Oh, I see.
I didn't resent her. I was really happy to be working with her and excited when I found out she was who I was working with. As far as us on the film, getting to what you see and working on that set. One thing I remember John saying is that his directing is hiring the right actors, and I feel that's how we got to what you saw. We did our work. He sent us a bio of our characters, and Lisa Gay and I just we did our thing as actors, and I think it's part of how we work. I don't find us to be overacting actors. I feel that we do bring, a natural feeling to our characters, because to me that's just how it should be.
Yeah. And one of the things I really look for in an actor is that ability to inhabit a character, and it's one of the reasons that Edward James Olmos came to mind when I was writing this thing, which is I'd never seen him play the role that he plays in Gopher Sisters before, so it wasn't like, oh, I know he can do this. But I've seen him play so many very, very different people and just inhabit them. And so when you get actors like that, you send them a bio of the character, which is some of the stuff that's not necessarily in the script, some background about the characters, and they're professionals, they learn their lines. A lot of what you're doing is saying, okay, well, here's the box that you're going to be in, and maybe literally that car, which they spend an awful lot of time in, and Yolanda, was always in the back seat, and Lisa Gay was driving, and Edward Olmos is in the next seat, next to her. So there's not any blocking to that. So a lot of what I'm doing is I'm just, what directing is really directing. You watch what the actors are doing, and if they're going in a really interesting direction with, how the scene is developing, you push them in that direction. Or if you think there's something they haven't tried yet, you push them in that direction. And then it's really up to them to do it. And that's the part, for me, even with only 4 weeks of shooting and way too many locations and all that kind of stuff, is you try to carve out a little time for the actors to do that with each other, is to explore things with each other. And, we don't do that many takes, so they don't get exhausted doing it. But each take is different. And then as an editor, because there's, more than one angle, I usually get to just kind of pick and choose and then build a new scene out of all the ammunition that they've given me.
I like that.
So we're providing a safe environment.
Yeah, no,
I mean, emotionally.
I think so.
And
yeah, no, completely. Yeah, completely. Because, there's not that many people in it. It's me and Lisa Gay mostly, and then Eddie.
That's right.
And then different people come into our world, as we meet people along the way. But it's our thing. So I feel like we were very emotionally taken care of because we had each other's back, and John wasn't throwing some crazy, off the wall thing at us, out of the blue as we were shooting. We were doing what he wrote and then what he was asking of us in each moment.
Mm-hmm. You play Fontaine. You're a recent parolee, and coincidentally, you are assigned Lisa Gay Hamilton is your parole officer. And you two actually are high school friends.
Yeah.
And so did you do any I don't know,
homework?
I guess homework is the right. I don't know how exciting everybody. It doesn't really matter. I mean, because you played this role so believably anyway that it's sort of decided, but you don't necessarily have to give your trade secrets out. But
well, I mean, as far as the character and who she was and where she came from, I mean, to me, you don't see me in jail or anything like that. So, that's something of the past. And keeping that in mind, it's like something that you don't want to go back to. That was always a present thought. There were a couple of songs, because I use music a lot for characters. And for the past, there was Lenny Williams' "'Cause I Love You." It just reminds me of things from the past, of a time when Fontaine was going through her craziness and maybe friendship of the time when she and Bernice were tighter, and just a lot of things from the past. And then moving forward was Sueño con Mexico from Pat Metheny, and that just makes me feel like hope for the future, hope in the future, and also where we were shooting. So I mean,
these things inform your mood and your character.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's interesting because one of the things that I do when I'm writing and when I'm editing is I'm listening to a lot of music, not necessarily music that will end up in the movie. Sometimes it does end up in the in the movie, but sometimes it really is just I want this scene to have a mood like this song. And sometimes you even have it on while you're cutting, but you're not cutting rhythmically to it. You just want to get that feeling out of music. Quite a few actors use music in that way.
Yeah, no. I have a question then about that because there's I forget what the term is for the music that the sort of music that plays throughout. There's a particular pieces of music that play. That's not so unusual. And then at the end, you have this very unique song. I think it's even sung by children. Is it?
Yeah, I wanted the idea of a jump rope song. Something that girls who weren't necessarily professional singers were singing.
Yeah.
And so Mason Daring, who's the composer, and I went back and I did some research, and I knew some of these lyrics before, but I found a bunch of those old jump rope lyrics and strung them together. And then we just got some, neighborhood girls to come in, and they were very shy at first, and then they kind of started having fun with each other, and they didn't all know each other to do the lyrics. None of them jumped rope or knew how or even know why anybody would. They're young enough that jump, skateboarding they understood.
I see.
But jump roping, they
we're not
was
losing
way
double
beyond
dutch,
their
are we?
experience, But, and then we recorded it, and then we slid it around a little bit. But it's just kind of like there is that thing that when girls are a certain age, they're just so tight. And maybe 3 or 4 of them, or maybe 2 of them, or whatever. But I just wanted something that brought the 2 of them that full circle back to that ease with each other, where they're not questioning, does she like me, does she not? It's just that, okay, you get out of your class, and even if it's not the same class that your friend is in, you find each other in the hallway, and you start talking.
One of the things that to me, that was so scary in the movie, and that I was dreading, was the song. The song when we had to pass the border. I was like, having to sing it, and not knowing which song it was going to be, because he had 3 choices at the time, and he hadn't made up his mind which, and I had to learn the words to all of them. So that was Yeah, that was probably my scariest moment.
Yeah, by way of an explanation, in order to look like you weren't carrying anything that you
illegal across the border.
Across the border to Mexico, the idea was to sing like
and look happy
gospel
in the car.
Christian.
Well,
song,
it wasn't
was
anything.
It, or was
I
it,
mean,
was
basically,
it
I had three choices, and one was a very expensive
Public
one,
domain?
which was Redemption Song.
Oh, yeah. The
Bob
Bob
Marley's
Marley.
Redemption Song, which is a wonderful song. And I forget what the other ones. But then going to the chapel, and then we decided let's do the public domain one.
Public domain. John
we are
Salyes.
independent filmmakers.
I was going to ask about Edward James Olmos, but I do want to talk to you about independent filmmaking because that's what this sort of podcast.
Mm-hmm.
Have you guys done a podcast before?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay. You've made this is 18 or which
18
is
features,
which
yeah.
I would almost think that I thought the number was higher if anything because I guess
Well, I've written a bunch for other people as well, but
right.
It's
Okay.
only 18 that
I
I've
think
directed.
Okay. And
I've been around forever.
Well, actually, there's very few filmmakers with that level or quantity of output where I actually I would say grow up, and I don't mean grow up in terms of my life because although there was a little of that, but in terms of my movie-going life as a young adult to now, I definitely grew up on John Salyes films. And I remember even when I was living in Boston as a student that I went to the Harvard Square Revival Theater and sat through the double feature of Liana and it had to be the Secaucus 7. I'm sure,
7,
because I didn't see that when it originally came out. And then from that point on, seeing the films as they came out. So from I'm assuming that was around 83 or 4, something like that. Mm-hmm. And probably seeing the majority of films as they've come out. So, and when I think a lot of people would still be shocked to know that you don't have built-in distribution in your films.
No.
You're making independent films, and it's still a challenge.
And sometimes self-financed, and or independently financed, and now it's harder and harder to get distribution of any kind without kind of financing it yourself. So that it's a funny thing that the independent film world has expanded to the point where something like the Sundance Film Festival will get 2,000 feature films a year submitted. That's a lot of feature films.
It is a lot.
And many of them totally watchable and some of them very good. But there are many fewer distributors of those films. There are a static number of screens that will show non-Hollywood movies.
So you're doing it theatrically, specifically.
Yeah, and there's only 52 weeks in the year. So the theatrical window for the crowd trying to get in it is a very, very narrow bottleneck.
Yeah.
And then there's all the other ways of people seeing movies, almost none of which return any money to the filmmaker. So that second film problem, I know so many really good filmmakers who've made one or two movies and just are stalled.
Yeah. So when you talk about self-financing, I assume you're not going to the ATM. So, I mean, for people, maybe some cases you are.
I am allowed to. They haven't cut my card off yet, but no, I'm writing movies for other people, and building up, a little war chest, and then every once in a while you have an idea for something, and you say, well, how much money is in the bank? Mm-hmm. You try to raise money outside, and usually the answer is no. And you try, sometimes from a half a year to a year, and then it gets apparent that, well, either this is something that I'm going to have to put aside, and I've got a bunch of those screenplays put aside, or maybe I could afford to finance it myself.
Do you think about going in and out of fashion? Do you think about this? Because let's say I over the weekend I rewatched. I hadn't seen it in at least 20 years. The Brother from Another Planet, which was such a joy to go back to.
Which was also self-financed.
And I was going to ask at some point, maybe you could do if you could do the scream from that at some point, that your character does when you're
the bat scream.
The bat scream.
we need a harmonizer here to do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Fair enough.
That was not totally.
I've worked on it.
All
right. So what was my point though? That So even though you were self-financed, that it was a film that was in a way. People were just ready for that film at that time. It seemed like it. They were very receptive to it, and so for a period of there, especially, it was like it seemed like what you were making. And then you go in like a couple of years ago, and you make an Amigo, which is an important film about a story that many people don't know about, so thank you for that. But it's not like you're going to win over lots of new audiences making that choice.
Yeah, well, one thing is that Brother from Another Planet came out in about 83 or 84. At that time, there were maybe a half dozen independent distributors, and the heads of those companies would watch anything with sprocket holes because there were so few independent movies being made in the country. Now, as I said, there are thousands and thousands and thousands, plus all the things, some of them very good English language stuff coming from Australia and New Zealand and Britain. And then there's the, subtitled movies to choose from. And the audience has not only that, there were only 3 networks back then. So we're talking about a very, very different landscape, There are so many cable outlets now. There are people who barely watch movies, who mostly are in the gamer world. So there are so many other options for entertainment that something like The Brother from Another Planet, the same exact movie, updated or whatever, could come out now and never get distribution. Very easily, just kind of like, well, it's good, it's fun, whatever, but can we really make that much money on it? No, so let's not distribute it.
You mentioned, just to hop back before, but I wanted to get your thoughts on your continuing trajectory about making independent films and that commitment. Edward James Olmos, who plays the third kind of character in the film, he's a former LAPD detective who has fallen through taking.
Yeah, he's been kicked off the force and lost his pension. He hasn't done jail time, but
and so he sort of had that fall from grace, and it just so happens he's also going blind in the film, and so but that was so. The friend who I took to the screening, the press screening, afterwards we were both like, he had to have his pupils dilated or something like that because he was. How do you act that? I mean, he had to use something. How do you?
Eddie,
looks so convincingly blind.
I kind of wrote in his bio, oh yeah, and this thing that you talk about in the film is macular degeneration. You should check it out. And so Eddie checked it out. And what it is, you can't actually see in front of you. You have peripheral vision, but not in front of you. And Eddie decided, well, I'm going to have the extreme form where you can't have a driver's license anymore. You've got to put things right up to the side of your eye to see the denomination of the money or anything like that. And he's just a really good actor. As I said, he inhabits the character.
You didn't use any kind of help.
No. And I think that he didn't put lenses on or anything like that. I think the interesting thing was seeing Yolanda and Lisa Gay react to him as their characters.
Yes.
Of just like, well, are we going to get, is he ever going to look us in the eye? And the answer was eventually no. I mean, I think it was interesting for you guys to have to deal with that of just as characters, just how blind is he?
Yes.
Yeah, no, it was pretty funny because we all read the script and knew it was there, but then to see him actually doing it, it was. You're you and you're the character. So then as the character, it's just like knowing the situation we're in, and then we're like with this half blind guy. It's like, oh really? How's this going to help us out? Yeah. So yeah, it was fun to play and to do. Yeah, and we just took it, and Eddie rolled with it.
I see by the publicist on the wall. We've run out of time, but thank you both for submitting to this painful interview, and I appreciate it.
Thank you, Adam.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.